I want you to think for a moment about the sheer, magnificent absurdity of an argument. You are there, desperately attempting to force what is inside your head into the head of another person. And they are doing precisely the same to you. It's like two people, each holding a bottle of water, trying to pour it into the other's bottle without spilling a drop, all while refusing to let go of their own. What we are really fighting for, you see, is not the truth, because truth, like the sky, has no edges. We are fighting for the feeling of being right. And the moment you need to be right, you are already profoundly and beautifully mistaken. The entire exhausting business of arguing, of constantly having to defend your intellectual territory, rests upon one very fragile, very beautiful misunderstanding: the idea that you can be absolutely, permanently, and unequivocally certain about anything at all. Look around you. Look at your daily life. You wake up, you pour your coffee, you check the news, and what you are receiving is not reality, but a curated, filtered, utterly temporary snapshot of reality. Yet, when you step into an argument, you suddenly adopt the posture of a judge handing down a final, immutable verdict on the universe. You forget that what you call a fact is simply a consensus, a temporary agreement we've made to keep the traffic moving. It's a brilliant fiction, but a fiction nonetheless. Think of the scientist. The good ones, the truly great ones, never stand on a soapbox shouting, "I have the truth." Instead, they say, "This is our best working model for now." They build a beautiful, intricate structure of understanding, but they always leave a wrecking ball nearby, knowing that tomorrow a new observation, a single unexpected flicker of light, might require them to tear the whole thing down and start over. That is intellectual honesty. That is true certainty, which is the certainty that everything is uncertain. But we, in our daily arguments, demand a certainty that even the greatest minds refuse to claim. We argue about politics as if we possess the complete economic data of 5 continents. We argue about ethics as if the entire history of human civilization were perfectly cataloged and understood inside our small skull. It's hilariously arrogant, isn't it? And it's exhausting. This need for certainty, this stubborn insistence on being right, is merely a desperate psychological strategy. The ego, that small, trembling voice inside you that says, "I am me, and I must survive," needs certainty the way a drowning person needs a piece of driftwood. If everything is fluid, if all opinions are just bubbles rising and popping, then who are you? The certainty of your opinion becomes the certainty of your own existence. If you are right, you are real. If you are wrong, you face the terrifying prospect of dissolving back into the great, bubbling, chaotic mystery. But what if we embraced that mystery? What if we accepted that life is not a straight road to a destination, but a magnificent, meandering river? Think of an old map, not the sterile G-piece on your phone, but a parchment scroll from centuries ago. It has beautiful, hand-drawn mountains, maybe a few sea monsters, and enormous blank spaces labeled, "Here be dragons." People once argued violently about whether the earth was flat, whether the sun moved, or whether invisible spirits controlled the wind. Their arguments were absolutely certain, absolutely passionate, and absolutely wrong. Every certainty of the past is the quaint, funny story of the present. And so, the things you are absolutely certain about today, that stubborn opinion you are defending on social media, that fixed idea you have about your friend, that unshakable belief about how your life should go, will almost certainly be revised, abandoned, or laughed at by the wiser person you will be in 10 years. To cling to your current certainty is to put a ball and chain on your future self. The mind-blowing part is this: the moment you realize you can never be totally certain, you are suddenly, paradoxically, free. You don't have to defend a flimsy little sandcastle of an idea against the incoming tide of new information. You can sit back and watch the waves come in, knowing that the beach is always shifting, always reforming. You stop arguing with your colleague, not because you agree with him, but because you realize his truth is just as temporary and beautiful as yours. You stop fighting your spouse over the small details, not because you've conceded the point, but because you've recognized that the detail itself will be gone tomorrow, replaced by a new detail, a new day, and a new, slightly different person you have both become. This is the great inspiration. Stop trying to grasp the world like a handful of sand. Let your thoughts flow through you. Hold your beliefs lightly, like a flower you are admiring before letting the breeze take it away. Your ideas are tools, not eternal monuments. When a tool no longer works, you drop it. You don't fight a religious war over a rusty wrench. The greatest minds throughout history, the philosophers, the poets, the true lovers of life, were not those who found certainty, but those who learned to live gorgeously without it. They sailed out into the "here be dragons" without fear, because they realized that the most certain thing in life is the boundless uncertainty of it all. And in that vast, open, magnificent space, where there are no walls of fixed opinion, you finally find room to breathe, to learn, and to truly live. When you stop demanding certainty, you stop arguing, and you begin to simply experience the miraculous, ever-changing dance of things. It is a radical, life-altering shift in posture. Imagine you are standing at the edge of a still pond, and you see a ripple, a disturbance on the surface. You start shouting at the ripple, demanding it stop, commanding the water to be calm. The more you shout, the more agitated you become, and the more your internal turmoil manifests as tiny tremors in the ground, which in turn create more ripples on the pond. The conflict you are trying to subdue in the world is simply a reflection of the conflict already churning inside you. The other person is merely the surface of the pond, and their argument is the ripple reflecting your own need to be right, your own unexamined fear. We are terrified of being proven wrong because we have fundamentally confused our opinions with ourself. We build our sense of identity, that flimsy little story of who I am, out of things like, I am smart, I am moral, or I understand politics. When someone challenges your opinion, the primitive part of your brain doesn't register an intellectual disagreement. It registers an existential threat. It feels as though the ground is being pulled out from under your very being. That intense, hot surge of anger you feel when someone dismisses your idea, that's not about their bad manners or poor logic. That is your ego, your little self, throwing a tantrum because it's being asked to dissolve. It's a brilliant, self-serving distraction. Instead of facing the internal fear of being wrong or uncertain, you project that fear outwards and blame the person in front of you for causing the agitation. Let's take a common, mind-numbing daily example, the argument over traffic directions. You are driving, and your passenger insists you should have turned left 3 blocks back. The immediate gut reaction is a fierce defense. I know what I'm doing! The GPS said so! Why the heat? You are already lost, or at least unsure. The fight isn't about the road. It's about defending the internal image of yourself as someone who is competent, someone who is in control. The moment you stop seeing the passenger as an opponent and start seeing them as a mirror reflecting your own anxiety about being a good driver, the argument vanishes. You can simply say, "Yes, you might be right. Let's check the map." The conflict melts away when you accept the vulnerability it was hiding. This is the motivation, the mind-blowing shift. The greatest gift an opponent can give you is the opportunity to see your own shadow. The things in their argument that irritate you most violently are almost always tied to something you desperately fear or suppress in yourself. If you are furiously arguing against someone's perceived arrogance, it's worth pausing to ask, where in my own life am I rigid, certain, and perhaps a little arrogant? If you are fighting against their carelessness, where in your own life do you desperately fear a lack of control? The opponent is your teacher, holding up a polished piece of obsidian that shows you the contours of your own soul. You don't need to win the debate. You need to study the reflection. The true shift happens when you realize that the most profound and productive thing you can do when someone attacks your belief is not to launch a counter-attack, but to simply stand still. Don't engage the conflict outside. Instead, turn your attention inward and observe the feeling of heat, the sudden rush of adrenaline, the tightening in your chest. Watch the reaction. That raw, emotional energy is not caused by the words coming out of their mouth. It is the friction created by those words hitting the rigid structure of your own internal opinion. If your opinion were truly fluid, truly flexible, the words would simply pass through you like wind through an open window. When you stop fighting the reflection in the mirror, the reflection stops fighting you. When you drop your end of the conflict, not by conceding, not by saying you win, but by genuinely ceasing the internal battle to defend your ego, the energy of the argument simply collapses. You transform the entire interaction from a competition into a collaborative investigation. You are no longer two people trying to pour water into closed bottles. You are two people standing shoulder to shoulder, looking out at the same confusing world and discussing the different ways you might describe it. This is the quiet power of non-resistance. You don't fight the reflection, you simply observe it, understand that it is fleeting and not solid, and the conflict dissolves. You are free to exist without the exhausting requirement of always being the victor in the mirror's game. Think of your vital energy, not just the physical kind, but the raw spiritual electricity that allows you to create, to laugh, to love, and to be truly present as a vast but limited reservoir. Every morning, the sun shines on this reservoir. You can choose to use that water to irrigate a magnificent garden of ideas, relationships, and meaningful work, or you can choose to open a small, leaky valve and watch it all disappear, drop by unnecessary drop. Arguing is that leaky valve. It is the most inefficient, destructive, and pointless expenditure of human attention that exists. The moment you accept the challenge of an argument, you have already lost. You have agreed to divert 100% of your current available energy. The energy you could be using to write a poem, learn a skill, hug your child, or simply observe the beauty of the clouds, into the petty, obsessive defense of a temporary mental position. It's a tax levied by your own ego, and the payment is always made in the currency of your life. Watch yourself the next time you leave a heated debate. You feel depleted, irritable, and mentally sluggish. This isn't because you lost. It's because the body-mind system does not differentiate between defending your opinion about politics and defending yourself from a charging animal. Your adrenaline spikes, your cortisol levels surge, and your primitive brain goes into fight or flight mode. All that complex, beautiful, life-sustaining chemistry is being deployed to defend an abstraction, a point of view that will likely change by next Tuesday. Think of the sheer magnitude of this waste. How many brilliant ideas have been lost to the world because the thinker was too busy drafting a fiery email rebuttal? How many moments of deep, quiet connection with a loved one have been shattered by the insistent, grating need to have the last word? We spend our lives rushing to capture time, to maximize productivity, to find efficiency in every area. Yet, when confronted with a disagreement, we throw all those principles out the window and commit to a black hole of energy consumption. Here is the mind-blowing motivation. Every argument you choose not to engage in immediately transforms that saved energy into creative potential. The moment you see the hook, the bait that is meant to drag you into conflict, and you quietly, deliberately refuse to bite, all that saved adrenaline, all that mental focus becomes available to you. Imagine you're in the kitchen trying to cook a complicated, beautiful meal. A small child, the equivalent of your ego, keeps tugging at your apron, demanding you stop everything to prove that the color red is superior to the color blue. If you stop cooking, lay down your tools, and get into an exhaustive 20-minute philosophical debate with the child, you not only waste the time, but the beautiful meal you were creating is ruined. The meal is your life, your creative project, your peace of mind. The child is the argument. The key is simply to pat the child's head and keep stirring the pot. The great difference between the wise and the perpetually stressed is not knowledge, but the economy of attention. The wise realize that their attention is the most valuable commodity they possess. They understand that by refusing to argue, they are not conceding, they are investing. They are reinvesting their mental capital back into the project of their own flourishing. So the next time the urge to argue rises, pause and perform this mental accounting. What will winning this debate purchase for me? A temporary, fleeting sensation of superiority. And what will it cost? 10 minutes of cortisol, an hour of lingering bitterness, and the opportunity to engage in a genuine act of presence or creation. The balance is never favorable. The return on investment for arguing is always negative. The liberating truth is that you can simply allow the other person to be wrong, or right, or both. Their state of mind has nothing to do with yours. Their opinion is a cloud passing through their own personal sky. You do not have to climb a ladder to argue with the cloud about the possibility of rain. You can simply stand beneath it and decide whether to grab an umbrella or continue to enjoy the sun. This is the ultimate act of self-care and self-respect. To guard the borders of your own energy reservoir, to say, without saying a word, that the peace of your own mind is more valuable than correcting the temporary confusion of another person. The energy you save today by dropping the rope in the tug of war of conflict is the energy you will use tomorrow to build a life of genuine substance. It's not passive surrender. It's an active, powerful redirection of your most precious resource. It is the choice to be a creator, not a combatant. The core delusion of argument is the belief that reality is somehow broken and that you, with your superior insight, are the mechanic appointed to fix it. We approach the universe with a red pen, constantly grading and correcting its spontaneous manifestation. We look at the rain and say, it should be sunny. We look at a difficult person and say, they ought to be different. We look at our own lives and whisper, this moment must be better. But nature, you see, has no shoulds. The oak tree is not arguing with the wind about its direction. The mountain is not sending an angry memo to the clouds about their moisture content. Everything in the natural world operates on a principle of absolute, unquestioning suchness. The rain is raining, the wind is blowing, the rock is hard. This is the great cosmic acceptance. It simply is. The liberating, mind-blowing truth is that your resistance to what is the sole source of your suffering. The argument is never with the external event. The argument is with your internal commentary about the external event. Consider a mundane but persistent daily irritant traffic. The reality is simply a collection of metal boxes moving slowly on a road. It is neither good nor bad. It is just a fact. Your suffering begins when you say, "This traffic is wrong. It should be moving faster. My morning shouldn't be like this." You are now arguing with the physical reality of 1 ton of steel being delayed by 3 minutes. And who wins that argument? Certainly not you. The traffic remains, and you are left stewing in a corrosive, useless bitterness. But what if, instead of arguing with the traffic, you simply acknowledged it? You could say, "Ah, here is the traffic. This is what is happening right now. The moment you stop fighting the reality of the congestion, all that energy you were using for fury is released. You are free to notice the interesting light, to listen to the birds, or simply to feel the presence of your own breathing. The traffic hasn't changed, but your experience of it has transformed from a torture chamber into a simple, neutral moment of waiting. This is the great inspiration for daily life. Drop the pen. Stop grading reality. When your spouse leaves their clothes on the floor, the reality is clothes are on the floor. Your suffering comes from the insistent belief they should be in the hamper. The argument you pick is not with the clothes, but with your idealized, demanding mental blueprint of how a perfect partner or a perfect home must operate. The most loving, powerful thing you can do is to accept the clothes on the floor as part of the total, spontaneous manifestation of the world right now. And then, if you must, pick them up with a quiet heart or decide to leave them there without the internal drama. This simple act of acceptance is not passive defeat. It is active peace. It's choosing peace over a petty need for control. The true visionary, the genuinely inspired person, is not one who tries to bend the universe to their will, but one who aligns their will with the universe's effortless flow. They see the world as a jazz musician sees an improvisation. They don't fight the last note. They let it go and use its energy to inform the next one. They realize that the mistakes are not flaws, but simply new, unexpected turns in the melody. If you stop arguing with the way things are, you find an immense, untapped well of energy. That energy is no longer consumed by trying to drag reality back to your preferred mental image. Instead, it becomes available for genuine, loving action. You are no longer a resentful critic. You become an engaged participant. The reality of what is that this moment, right now, with all its imperfections, annoyances, and temporary confusions, is the only reality you will ever have. It is the whole show. To argue with it is to argue with the very essence of your life, to embrace it, to accept the rain as rain, the noise as noise, the difficulty as difficulty, is to step out of the argument and into the deep, magnificent flow of being. You no longer need to win the world. You simply let the world be, and in that stillness, you find yourself utterly, beautifully at home. We live in a world obsessed with broadcasting. Everyone is a talking head, constantly formulating their next brilliant retort while the other person is still speaking. We believe that power lies in having the loudest voice, the cleverest comeback, or the final, definitive word. But this is the ultimate exhaustion, a desperate race to fill every available space with the noise of one's own ego. The quiet alternative is the magnificent, mind-blowing realization that the greatest power, the power to understand, to influence, and to feel genuine peace, is found in the profound act of holding your tongue. When someone is arguing with you, they are not actually trying to communicate a fact, they are trying to communicate a feeling. They are expressing a position that is deeply tied to their history, their insecurities, or their temporary state of anxiety. If you immediately launch into a logical counter argument, you miss the entire point. It's like trying to put out a fire with a spreadsheet. You're engaging at the wrong level. The quiet alternative asks you to become an investigator, not a combatant. Try this next time. Instead of listening to the words your opponent is using, listen to the tension in their voice. Listen for the fear that their words are meant to cover up. Listen to the rhythmic pulse of their insecurity. The moment you shift your focus from what they are saying to why they are saying it, the nature of the entire interaction changes. You are no longer trying to shoot down their idea. You are trying to understand the pain, the confusion, or the urgent need for validation that is fueling their argument. This is the motivation. When you truly listen, which means listening without formulating your reply, you disarm the argument simply by refusing to fight it on its terms. An argument is a dance that requires two partners to keep moving. If one person stops dancing, the other looks ridiculous. If you meet their high energy assertion with quiet, genuine curiosity, their energy has nowhere to go but down. Their aggression, having found no resistance to bounce off of, simply dissipates. In daily life, the example is everywhere. Think of the family conflict. Your teenage child is ranting about how unfair you are. Your immediate urge is to list every single selfless thing you've ever done for them. That is the old, exhausting way. The quiet alternative is to simply sit, look them in the eye, and say very calmly, "Tell me more about that." Not in a sarcastic way, but with a deep, open question. You are inviting them to empty their full cup. When the cup is finally empty, there is room for something new. The mind-blowing part is the discovery of what is revealed in the silence you create. When you stop pouring your own opinions out, you suddenly have space to see the world as it actually is, and the insight is not just about the person you were arguing with, but about yourself. When you are silent, you notice the powerful, almost uncontrollable urge in your own chest to jump in and correct, to defend, to prove. You see the machinery of your own ego churning, desperate to be validated. The quiet alternative allows you to watch this magnificent internal drama without participating in it. You see the urge to argue as a nervous twitch, and you choose not to twitch. The power of silence is not empty. It is a space filled with potential and genuine wisdom, the great insights of humanity, the scientific breakthroughs, the profound philosophies, the deep works of art, rarely come from the clamor of the argument. They are born in the quiet room, in the moment when the mind finally surrenders its need to chatter and simply observes. When you drop the need to counter, state, you gain something infinitely more valuable than a victory. You gain access. You gain access to the other person's reality, which is a key to profound empathy. And most importantly, you gain access to your own deepest clarity, which is usually buried under the endless noise of your own defense mechanisms. The quiet alternative is the ultimate philosophical flex. It says, I am so secure in the mystery of my own being that I do not need your agreement to be real. It is the radical act of choosing peace over performance. It's not an escape from conflict. It is the instantaneous transformation of conflict into a quiet, collaborative moment of shared observation. And that is a truly beautiful way to exist. And so, after we've explored this curious landscape of conflict, the illusion of certainty, the mirror of our own fear, the sheer, idiotic draining of our vital energy, we arrive at the only place we ever truly needed to be, the present moment, unburdened. You see, the argument is a rope. When two people are pulling on it furiously, both hands are clenched, both bodies are straining, and neither one of them is free to do anything else. The magnificence lies in this. You don't have to win the tug of war. You simply have to drop the rope. The minute you let go, the whole game is over. The other person can fall backward into their own confusion, but you are suddenly liberated. Your hands are open. This is the ultimate motivational dialogue, not one shouted into a microphone, but whispered into the deep quiet of your own being. Your life is not a debate tournament. It is a feast. It is a symphony. It is a fleeting, miraculous moment of awareness between two enormous, endless mysteries. The mystery of what came before and the mystery of what comes next. Why waste a single precious breath of this miracle trying to prove your temporary idea is better than another temporary idea? The great secret of living is not fighting for reality, but flowing with it. The river does not argue with the stones. It simply finds its way around them. The truly powerful person is not the one who can shout the loudest, but the one who can remain profoundly and serenely calm while the world rages around them. The invitation is to a richer, far less exhausting life. Imagine waking up tomorrow and consciously, deliberately, deciding that you have retired from the business of being right. The boss criticizes your work. Perhaps so. The pundit screams on the screen. How fascinating. Your friend has a thoroughly unworkable idea. That is one way of looking at it. You are no longer a gladiator in the arena of opinion. You are an observer in the cosmic theater. This is the power to reclaim your life. Every moment of peace you salvage by refusing to be dragged into petty conflict is a moment of pure raw material for joy. It is the energy you can use to build something beautiful. It is the attention you can use to truly see the face of the person you love without the filter of resentment or argument. Don't seek to win arguments. Seek to understand the silence that underlies all noise. Don't seek to be right, seek to be free. The most attractive, most inspiring thing a human being can do is to be utterly, authentically, and unreservedly at peace with the world as it is. So, let the certainty go. Let the mirror shatter. Let the energy drain stop. When you choose to simply observe and to flow, you are not surrendering to them. You are surrendering to the vast, glorious intelligence of the universe. You are choosing to sail, not to row. You are choosing to be awake, not agitated. And in that quiet, magnificent choice, your argument finally, beautifully ends